The terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, marked a watershed moment in modern history. Al-Qaeda, a radical Islamist terrorist network led by Osama bin Laden, orchestrated the hijacking of 4 commercial airplanes, using them as weapons against American symbols of power. 2 planes struck the World Trade Center towers in New York City, another hit the Pentagon, and the 4th crashed into a field in Pennsylvania after passengers fought back. The death toll approached 3,000, and the world watched in horror as the towers collapsed on live television. Within hours, the CIA and FBI identified Al-Qaeda as the group responsible, and intelligence pointed directly to bin Laden, who had previously declared war on the U.S. in fatwas issued in the late 1990s. In response, President George W. Bush launched Operation Enduring Freedom, sending U.S. troops into Afghanistan in October 2001 with the goal of toppling the Taliban and dismantling Al-Qaeda's infrastructure. The CIA played a crucial role early in the campaign, deploying paramilitary teams into Afghanistan to assist anti-Taliban forces. They made rapid progress, and intelligence reports suggested that bin Laden was hiding in the rugged mountains of Tora Bora, near the Pakistan border. A massive battle erupted in December 2001 as U.S. and Afghan forces bombarded the cave networks. But due to poor coordination and limited troop deployment on the ground, bin Laden managed to escape, slipping through the mountains, possibly aided by local tribes and Pakistani sympathizers. The failure to capture him at Tora Bora haunted the CIA and the Bush administration. Despite the invasion's early success in toppling the Taliban, bin Laden's disappearance represented a symbolic and strategic failure. It forced a hard reckoning. The war was entering a far more complicated phase, one that couldn't rely on military might alone. With bin Laden off the radar, the CIA entered a new and far more difficult chapter. One dominated by secrecy, shadows, and uncertainty. Bin Laden had effectively vanished. He avoided all electronic communications, making traditional surveillance methods useless. He didn't use phones, computers, or any traceable medium, forcing the CIA to return to the roots of old-school espionage, spying, human informants, and patient groundwork. The U.S. established covert bases across South Asia, particularly in Pakistan, and collaborated with local intelligence services like Pakistan's ISI, though mutual mistrust complicated the relationship. CIA operatives began recruiting informants, developing leads, and mapping Al-Qaeda's second-tier leadership, hoping one of them might lead to bin Laden. At the same time, they relied heavily on the U.S. military's capture of suspected terrorists, transporting many to secret prisons or Guantanamo Bay, where they were interrogated, often under methods later classified as torture. During these interrogations, a pattern emerged. Detainees consistently mentioned a mysterious figure referred to as Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. This man was said to be a close confidant and courier for bin Laden, a link to the elusive leader. However, confirming his real identity, whereabouts, or role took years of cross-referencing and sifting through a sea of disinformation. The CIA also had to deal with competing priorities. The 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq diverted intelligence resources away from Afghanistan and bin Laden, as the Bush administration claimed Saddam Hussein might have ties to Al-Qaeda. This controversial move further delayed progress in the bin Laden hunt, leaving the CIA stretched thin and frustrated. Nonetheless, by 2005, intelligence leaders began to refocus their attention. Rather than pursuing bin Laden directly, since he had gone completely dark, they intensified efforts to track his inner circle, particularly couriers. This shift would prove pivotal in the years to come, as one courier's routine eventually unraveled the biggest intelligence mystery of the post-9/11 era. By the mid-2000s, Osama bin Laden had become a ghost. No satellite images, no intercepted calls, no sightings. The only hope of finding him lay in uncovering the network that surrounded him. Through persistent interrogations of captured Al-Qaeda operatives at CIA black sites and Guantanamo Bay, analysts noticed a recurring name: Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. While most prisoners either lied or deflected, a few hinted that Abu Ahmed was more than a foot soldier. He was bin Laden's trusted courier. This revelation shifted the CIA's strategy dramatically. Since bin Laden had cut himself off from all digital and electronic communication, Any interaction with the outside world had to pass through a human intermediary. If the CIA could find the courier, they could potentially find bin Laden himself. Still, the path was far from clear. For years, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti was just a code name, no clear photo, no real identity. Conflicting reports claimed he was dead, or that he was unimportant. Even within the CIA, debates raged about whether the courier theory was a dead end. But CIA analysts in the Counterterrorism Center, CTC, persisted, cross-referencing travel records, interrogations, and signals intercepts from Pakistan and the Gulf states. Breakthrough came when they connected al-Kuwaiti to a real person. Sheikh Abu Ahmed, a Pakistani of Kuwaiti origin whose movements seemed to evade traditional surveillance. By 2009, U.S. surveillance teams, with assistance from Pakistani informants, were tracking a man using that name who had no online presence, used no phone, and took extreme measures to stay hidden. He eventually led them to an unusual compound in a garrison town north of Islamabad, Pakistan, a place called Abbottabad. When the CIA first laid eyes on the compound in Abbottabad in August 2010, it didn't look like much from a distance, but upon closer inspection, it raised every red flag. Built in 2005, the three-story house sat on a large plot of land, surrounded by towering concrete walls topped with barbed wire. There were no phone lines or internet cables. Windows were narrow, the residents burned all their trash, and a strange man, tall and reclusive, was sometimes seen pacing in the yard, never venturing outside. The CIA dubbed him the Pacer. The compound's location also seemed deliberately chosen, close to Pakistan's military academy, in an area where no one would expect a fugitive of bin Laden's magnitude to hide. It was hiding in plain sight, an ingenious strategy that made intelligence officials pause. After months of surveillance from nearby CIA safehouses and aerial drones, the agency grew more confident. They weren't 100% certain, but they believed bin Laden was there. Internally, the CIA leadership and President Obama's national security team faced a dilemma: what to do next. Bombing the compound could eliminate bin Laden, but it risked killing innocent family members and destroying any proof of his presence. A drone strike would also prevent DNA confirmation. On the other hand, a raid meant entering sovereign Pakistani territory without their knowledge, an act that could spark diplomatic and military backlash if it failed. After countless simulation drills and intelligence reviews, President Obama approved a bold plan: a surgical raid by SEAL Team 6 under the code name Operation Neptune Spear. The compound was now the most closely watched house in the world, and inside, if their intelligence was right, was the man they had spent a decade chasing. By late 2010, the CIA had amassed a compelling but not fully conclusive body of evidence that Osama bin Laden was hiding inside the Abbottabad compound. Despite lacking visual confirmation or biometric proof, the pattern of behavior, the compound's unique security features, and the presence of the Pacer led CIA Director Leon Panetta to present the case to President Barack Obama. What followed was one of the most secretive and high-stakes national security planning sessions in modern U.S. history. Inside the White House Situation Room, the National Security Council convened repeatedly between March and April 2011. Several options were considered: a joint raid with Pakistani forces, a precision airstrike, or a covert raid by U.S. Special Operations. Pakistani cooperation was quickly ruled out. Intelligence leaders feared leaks or betrayal, especially since bin Laden was hiding near a Pakistani military facility. An airstrike risked destroying key evidence, including bin Laden's body, which was crucial for global verification. Eventually, the Obama administration chose the riskiest and most politically explosive option: a direct ground assault by SEAL Team 6, also known as DevGru, under the command of JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. The operation was codenamed Operation Neptune Spear, named after the trident in the U.S. Navy SEAL emblem. The planning was exhaustive. A full-scale replica of the Abbottabad compound was built in a secret location for rehearsals. Teams trained for every possible contingency: booby traps, hostages, resistance, or Pakistani military intervention. There was even a backup plan. If the mission failed and the SEALs were captured or killed, the U.S. government would deny involvement and disavow the operation. The final green light came on April 29, 2011, when President Obama gave the go-ahead. The raid was scheduled for the night of May 1, 2011, May 2nd in Pakistan, under cover of darkness and with stealth helicopters modified to avoid radar detection. The mission was a go, but no one knew for sure if bin Laden was really inside. The night of May 1, 2011, two specially modified Black Hawk helicopters lifted off from Jalalabad, Afghanistan, carrying 23 Navy SEALs, a military dog named Cairo, and a CIA translator. They flew low and silent across the Pakistani border, dodging radar and avoiding detection by Pakistani air defenses. Their target, the compound in Abbottabad. At approximately 1 a.m. local time, the operation began. As the helicopters attempted to hover over the compound's walls, one of them experienced mechanical failure due to hot, dense air and the high surrounding walls. It made a controlled crash landing inside the compound. Despite the setback, the team proceeded swiftly. SEALs breached the main house using explosives and moved floor by floor. They encountered minimal resistance. Only a few of bin Laden's guards were armed, and brief firefights broke out. Within minutes, they reached the 3rd floor, where they found a tall man believed to be bin Laden. He was unarmed but did not surrender. A SEAL shot him twice, once in the chest and once above the left eye, killing him instantly. The SEALs quickly secured the rest of the compound, collecting computers, hard drives, and documents. Bin Laden's body was photographed, and a facial recognition scan was run. His identity was further confirmed through DNA testing with samples collected from family members years earlier. After 38 minutes on the ground, the SEALs exited the compound, destroying the downed helicopter to protect its classified technology. They boarded a backup Chinook helicopter and returned to Afghanistan with bin Laden's body. Back in Washington, President Obama and his team had watched the entire mission unfold in real time via helmet cams and satellite feeds. When CIA Director Panetta confirmed bin Laden's death, the room was silent until Secretary of State Hillary Clinton gasped and covered her mouth. The man responsible for 9/11 was dead. Later that night, President Obama addressed the nation. Justice has been done. Bin Laden's body was buried at sea within 24 hours in accordance with Islamic tradition, to prevent any burial site from becoming a shrine. The raid was one of the most daring and precise counterterrorism operations in U.S. history, changing the course of global geopolitics and bringing a symbolic end to the first chapter of the War on Terror. The announcement of Osama bin Laden's death on the night of May 1, 2011, ignited a wave of reactions across the globe. In the United States, spontaneous celebrations broke out in cities like New York, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles. Crowds gathered outside the White House and Ground Zero, waving American flags, chanting, "USA, USA," and singing the national anthem. For many, the death of the Al-Qaeda leader brought a long-awaited sense of justice, closure, and emotional relief nearly a decade after the trauma of 9/11. However, the international reaction was far more complex. While Western allies largely supported the U.S. operation and praised its precision, several Middle Eastern countries expressed concerns about sovereignty, human rights, and the potential for retaliation. The fact that the U.S. had conducted a covert military raid deep within Pakistan, without informing the Pakistani government, triggered outrage and embarrassment in Islamabad. Pakistan's government, military, and intelligence agencies were placed under intense scrutiny. How could the world's most wanted terrorist live undetected in a high-security town just a few kilometers from Pakistan Military Academy in Kakul? Was it negligence or complicity? American officials openly questioned whether elements within Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence (ISI) had been sheltering bin Laden. Trust between the two supposed allies reached a historic low. In response, Pakistan condemned the raid as a violation of its sovereignty and launched its own investigation. Anti-American sentiment spiked within Pakistan, leading to diplomatic friction and public protests. Aid to Pakistan was debated in the U.S. Congress, and many American citizens demanded answers as to why the U.S. had continued to fund a government that may have harbored a mass murderer. Al-Qaeda, meanwhile, quickly confirmed bin Laden's death and vowed revenge. While his death was a psychological and strategic blow, it didn't destroy the organization entirely. However, it did trigger a period of fragmentation, with many affiliates becoming more decentralized and regional in focus, paving the way for groups like ISIS to later emerge. The death of Osama bin Laden marked a historic milestone in the U.S. war on terror, but it also raised profound questions about intelligence, national security, military ethics, and the future of global counterterrorism. For the CIA, Operation Neptune Spear became a case study in modern intelligence success, demonstrating the power of persistence, data analysis, human development, and interagency cooperation. The operation underscored the necessity of blending traditional spycraft with cutting-edge surveillance technologies. It also validated the theory that targeting a terrorist's inner circle, rather than the leader directly, can be a more effective path to uncovering hidden networks. However, it also brought renewed debate over the morality and legality of enhanced interrogation techniques, waterboarding, sleep deprivation, stress positions. While some former officials argued that such methods helped extract crucial information about bin Laden's courier, others, supported by Senate reports, argued that humane and legal methods would have achieved the same result over time. This debate continues to influence public opinion, legislation, and CIA oversight. From a military perspective, the raid became a benchmark for surgical counterterrorism strikes. It led to increased reliance on special operations forces and drone warfare, as the U.S. shifted away from large-scale invasions toward more targeted, intelligence-driven missions. However, this approach also fueled criticism about collateral damage, overreach, and the global expansion of undeclared conflict zones. Geopolitically, bin Laden's death reshaped U.S. foreign policy. President Obama used the event to justify a gradual withdrawal from Afghanistan and a pivot toward emerging threats in other regions. Yet the war continued, and terrorism evolved. Bin Laden's death did not end extremism. It merely closed a symbolic chapter. In retrospect, the mission to find and eliminate Osama bin Laden serves as both a triumph of intelligence and a mirror reflecting the moral, legal, and strategic dilemmas of modern warfare. It proved that justice could be pursued across years and continents, but it also reminded the world that victory over terrorism would not come from one man's death alone.